who have driven all the way from Tennessee just to see us. So if you give them a nice welcome.
Thank you, John. First of all, I want to say thank you guys so much for having us. I really appreciate Tri-City hosting us. And also, I want to give a big thanks to the Wall to Wall Club. We approached them. Actually, they approached us, I believe, and they suggested we come here, and they said they would drive over and spend some time. So I know there's a few more guys on the road still from Wall to Wall, but we don't want to keep everybody waiting this evening. And then, of course, as John mentioned, afterwards we'll get picked up as quick as we can, and we'll get over to see the railroad as well. And I want to say thank you for making time for us tonight. I got to say, one of my biggest fears is having a meet and greet, nobody showing up. So it's great to see a room full. And what we're going to do tonight, we're going to tell our story. And I got to tell you, our story is nothing short of a miracle. And as part of that process, we'll take a trip to our to see how product development is done from start all the way to finish. We'll go to our factory in mainland China, and we'll see some video there. Make sure before you leave that you register for the hats and shirts and the koozies. Michelle's really good. About 10 or 15 minutes after the presentation, she'll draw some names there, and you'll be able to take those home tonight. And make sure you get a gift bag with the road trip pin inside. There's some ribbon counter pins and Scale Trains pins. And as we go along tonight, we encourage you, if you've got questions as we go, or if there's things you want to know more about, don't hesitate to ask. We'll even ask some Q&A at the end. And don't worry about what the questions. I've been asked everything from why in the world do you make model trains in China, to why do model trains cost so much, to why did you pick that road name to do. So you want to fit me, and I'm happy to answer those questions for you. And of course, we want you to have a great time as well. And I promise this is not an infomercial about buying Scale Trains. This is just about how we do business. So with that, we'll get started. I'll introduce you first to Mike Copley. Mike there in the center, and his wife Sylvia right next to him. And Mike, at that when we started the idea for Scale Trains, he was the product development director at Athearn. And then this is our family, Michelle and I, our kids there, and our extended family. And I show these two slides at the beginning because this is how we got started. And this story really isn't just about us, it's about our team, but it starts with Mike and I, and it starts at the National Train Show in 2013 in Atlanta. Now I could take you all the way back to when I was a little kid and bring you all the way to today, and how God's had a plan for me in this business, but I don't want to bore you to tears or keep you all night. So we'll fast forward it to the show in 2013. And at that time, I was the marketing manager for Athearn. And I was based out of Central Illinois, out of Champaign. That was at Verizon, which was Athearn's parent company. And then Mike was in Southern California. And so we did a lot of trade shows together. And we would meet up, and we'd spend probably 4 or 5 days at a time together. When you travel with someone a lot, you get to know them pretty well. And we got to be pretty good friends. And while we were in Atlanta, not sure how we got on the subject, but the subject came up with, wouldn't it be really cool if we could start our own model train company? We could make all the decisions. And I'm like, yeah, but hopefully we don't make bad decisions, because that wouldn't be good. But it was that seed that got germinated. And throughout that fall of 13, I started working on a business plan. And there were a lot of hurdles. One was money. Where in the world would we ever come up with enough money to start the company? And there were some big advantages. There were projects that we always wanted to do at Athearn that we could never get green-lighted. So we could chart our own direction, right? And we could make all the decisions, and hopefully more good than bad. And then, as I talked to Mike a lot, I said, Mike, if we're going to leave Athearn and Horizon, they've been great to us. I've been there about 23 years at that point. Mike had probably been there about 15 years. And I said, let's not be another Me Too model railroad manufacturer. If we're going to do this, let's stretch our industry. What are the things that we can do to be innovative? And sometimes, it's little things. How many in the room would build a blue box kit? I want to bet just about everybody in the room would build a blue box kit, right? And when you got done building it, you took it to the club and go run it, and the couplers were laying in the box, right? It happened to all of us. Well, it was like, Mike, what if we came up with a package when you build a kit, you can actually put it back in the package and then safely store the model. It's a little thing, but it's an innovation, right? And then on the opposite end of the spectrum, we talked a lot about what can we do to push the technology. And at the time when we did the big flow turbine, things like operating class lights that you could cycle between, you want to put that in the bag, between red, white, green, and off, those were unheard of. We had cab interior lighting, you had instrument panel lighting. In the V unit, the turbine fan blade spun. As the locomotive goes through a curve, it's got a curve squeal. If it goes across a turnout or a switch, it's got a frog clang sound. You've got opening doors on the A unit and on and on and on. And it was that kind of going whole hog, right? To do the best locomotive that we could possibly do to push both ends. And then there was a lot of things in between. One of them was, it was like, you know, the most expensive part of creating a new project is the tooling and the research that goes into that tooling. And it's like, what if we could come up with a way where we could get more from our tooling? And that's where the brands were hatched. So we have Kit Classics, we have Operator, Rivet Counter, Museum Quality. In the beginning, the turbines shared between Rivet Counter, Museum Quality, and we have a lot of products now that share between Operator and Rivet Counter. Well, when we tool like a 40-2 or a freight car, the tooling, you know, instead of being 2 times as expensive, it's 1.5 times. So we get 2 models for the price of 1.5. So that was another little innovation we worked out. One of the other big inspirations from the business plan was living the American dream. Hopefully it doesn't become the American nightmare, and it didn't, thank goodness. And Mike's faith was a lot stronger than mine when we first started the company, and the idea was hatched. And Mike kept telling me, I mean, from the very beginning, it's in the very first page of the business plan. Mike says, you know, God brought us together for a much higher purpose than making model trains. And we've been truly blessed. We are able to give back monthly in time and resources to our local communities, and we don't really talk about that a lot, but we'll show you something here that's pretty public, and we'll do that a little bit later as we go on. And so from there, you know, there was Mike was really strong on the PD side. You guys can grab a chair in the back if you like. Mike was super strong on the PD side. I knew the marketing, I knew sales, knew business. But you need a guy who can actually put the paint schemes on a model, right? You can have this beautiful model, but if you can't get Union Pacific and the shield and all the other little details, it doesn't really matter. So we decided to approach Joe Albera. And that's Joe there in the center with his wife and kids, and you notice he's got some young boys in that photo. That's about 1.5 years after this idea was hatched. And have you ever been to Train Fest in Milwaukee? Usually there's a hand there. No, nobody here. Train Fest is one of the big shows that we do every year. And we decided that Mike and I are coming in, and Joe's going to come in too. And they're from Southern California, so they're going to fly in. And we told Joe that we'd like to spend some time with him after the show on Saturday. He has no idea why. And so we do the show on Saturday. We go to dinner, we get done with dinner, go back to my hotel room, and we sit down and we start talking about what we're thinking. And I thought Joe would look at me and say, you guys have absolutely lost your minds. We work for a great company, they take great care of us, why would we ever leave? And after an hour of talking with Joe and sharing the ideas that we had and what we were thinking, I said, Joe, what do you think? That fast, Joe says, I'm in. And I'm like, Joe, you should probably talk to your wife. And he goes, no, I'm in. And I'm like, Joe, you really need to talk to Alexis. And he says, I'll convince her. And sure enough, Joe convinced her, and Joe came on board with us. But you know, still at that time in that November, we were really waffling. It was like, man, do we really want to take this risk? I mean, we're putting our whole family fortunes at risk. We had enough resources at the beginning that we could do the big low turbine project. We could do the water tenders that go along with that project. We could do the tank cars, we could do the box cars, and I'm missing something, right? Tank cars, box cars, water tenders. And the turbine, yeah, and enough to do the turbine project. And but the problem is, if you've ever started a business, you know there's this key that's called cash flow. And I liken it to launching off an aircraft carrier. You know, that launch is like when you're spending money, you're just burning cash like crazy. And then you got this time where you got to grab some lift, and that's when your cash flow. Well, I knew that we were going to crash and burn. There was just not enough money to keep us going to do other projects. Well, in the very first day of 2014, there's a meeting at Horizon. And at Horizon in those days, there was probably about 700 or 800 employees globally. And I'm talking like Champaign, Illinois, where I was from, Southern California, where Mike and Joe were from, Great Britain, China, Hong Kong, France, Germany. I can go on and on. There's a global meeting at the exact same time around the world. Doesn't matter what time zone you're in, there's a meeting. And I'll go back in time a little bit. When Horizon started, I was there in the very early days. The digital images, you'll see in a moment the turbine drawing. We're gathering as much product information as we can. And I mentioned being out 5 years. We're already gathering projects out 5 years. This is the main turbine drawing. This drawing is 15 feet long. It'll give you the major dimensions, truck centers, lengths, widths, heights, all that kind of stuff, but it doesn't give you the little details. And so that's why we're always out searching for that research material. Great story, in the early days, I was getting reimbursements for $100 per slide, for a slide.
And I finally said, guys, we gotta stop spending $100 on slides. When I dug into it, I found out that Mike and Paul were bidding against each other on eBay. Only the one guy buys slides. So this is what I like to call the Holy Grail. And this is the spreadsheet that starts a project. And on this spreadsheet, you'll see horns and bodies and all that kind of stuff. And on the spreadsheet, what we're doing is outlining every single detail on a model. This is the turbine, works the same way for anything else. On the turbine, there are 30 road numbers, and it had a very short life. It was from the late 50s to the 1970s. And so it's pretty easy. So you take road numbers 1 through 7. All the early ones, they weren't delivered with grab irons on the nose. The later ones were, so 8 through 30 would have those. And what you're doing is to create the logo. There's another machine that's going to add 4 more colors. So there's a total of 9 colors that go into this logo. She's going to take it off, put another body on it. In a moment, she's going to grab a magnifying glass. Anybody ever get a model and you're looking at a herald that's multicolored and the edges are fuzzy? They don't quite line up. It looks like all 9 colors of the ribbon. Come over here just a second right there. Then there's final assembly. They wouldn't let us film on the line, so you'll see some things that are done pretty close up. But essentially what this is, imagine a table longer than this room. It's about yay wide. And there's a little table here with a chair and some plastic parts and kitty corner from it. It's another little square table and a chair and some plastic parts that goes that way all the way down. And what happens is, somebody picks up the body, puts it on the table, grabs this part, puts their part on, sets it in the middle. This person grabs that body, grabs their part, and puts it on, sets it in the middle. And it goes all the way down. It works that way for locomotive bodies and freight cars. When it comes out the other end, it's done. There's a mechanism line as well. And then before the mechanism is actually married to the body, we actually run it, all the sound functions, all the light functions to make sure they work. And more importantly, we're going to shut the sound off because we're looking for any kind of, you're listening for any kind of gear noise, any kind of binding in the drivetrain, motor noise, anything that could cause a problem. And then it goes to final packaging, and that's when it's going to get married to the body. In final packaging, the package is labeled. It's going to have